Thank you for joining Wars of the Rosies as we continue with part 6 of the Historical Jesus and Mythical Christ, a lecture by Gerald Massey. The Gnostics asserted truly that celestial persons and celestial scenes had been transformed to earth in our Gospels, and it is only within Pleroma, the heaven, or in the Zodiac that we can at times identify the originals of both, and it is there we must look for the two fishes, as the latest form of the manifestor was in the heaven of the 12 signs. That probably determined the number of 12 basketfuls of food remaining when the multitude had been fed. They that ate the loaves were 5,000, and 5,000 was the exact number of celestials or gods in the Assyrian paradise. Before the revolt and fall from heaven, the scene of the miracle of the loaves and fishes is followed by an attempt to take Jesus by force, but he withdrew himself, and this is succeeded by the miracle of his walking on the waters and conquering the winds and waves. So is it in the ritual. Chapter 57 is that of the breath prevailing over the water in Hades. The speaker having to cross over says, O Hapi, I let the Osiris prevail over the waters, like as the Osiris prevailed against the taking by stealth, the night of the great struggle. The solar god was betrayed to his death by the Egyptian Judas on the night of the taking by stealth, which was the night of the Last Supper. The god is waylaid by the conspirators who have watched very much. They are said to smell him out by the eating of his bread. So the Christ is waylaid by Judas, who knew the place, for Jesus often restored thither, and by the Jews who had long watched to take him. The smelling of Osiris by the eating of his bread is remarkably rendered by John at the eating of the Last Supper. The ritual has it, they smell Osiris by the eating of his bread, transporting the evil of Osiris. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, and after the sop Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus to him, into whom the evil or devil had been transported, that thou doest, do quickly. Osiris was the same, beseeching burial. Here it is demonstrable that the non-historical Herod is a form of the Apophis serpent, called the enemy of the sun. In Syriac, Herod is a red dragon. Herod in Hebrew signifies a terror. Heru is to terrify, and Hurut is the snake, the typical reptile. The blood of the divine victim that is poured forth by the Apophis serpent at the 6th hour, on the night of smiting the profane, is literally shed by Herod as the Hurut or Typhonian serpent. The speaker in the ritual asks, Who art thou then, Lord of the silent body? I have come to see him who is the serpent eye to eye and face to face. Lord of the silent body is a title of the Osiris. Who art thou then, Lord of the silent body, is asked and left unanswered. The character is also assigned to the Christ. The high priest said unto him, Answerest thou nothing? But Jesus held his peace. Herod questioned him in many words, but he answered him nothing. He asked the prescribed character of Lord of the silent body. The transaction in the 6th hour of the night of the crucifixion is expressly inexplicable. In the Gospel we read, Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. The 6th hour being midnight, that shows the solar nature of the mystery, which has been transformed to the 6th hour of the day in the Gospel. It is in the 7th hour the mortal struggle takes place between the Osiris and the deadly Apophis, or the great serpent, harbor 450 cubits long that fills the whole heaven with its vast enveloping folds. The name of this 7th hour is that which wounds the serpent harbor. In the conflict with the evil power thus portrayed, the sun god is designated the conqueror of the grave and is said to make his advance through the influence of Isis, who aids him in repelling the serpent or devil of darkness. In the Gospel, Christ is likewise set forth in the supreme struggle as conqueror of the grave, for the graves were opened and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and Mary represents Isis, the mother at the cross. It is said of the great serpent, there are those on the earth who do not drink of the waters of this serpent harbor, which may be paralleled with the refusal of Christ to drink of the vinegar mingled with the gall. When the god has overcome the Polyphemus serpent, his old, nightly, annual, and eternal enemy, he exclaims, I come, I have made my way, I have came like the sun through the gate of the one who likes to deceive and destroy, otherwise called the viper. I have made my way, I have bruised the serpent, I have passed. But the more express representation in the mysteries was that of the annual sun as the elder Horus or Atom. As Julius Firmicus says, in the solemn celebration of the mysteries, all things in order had to be done which the youth either did or suffered in his death. Diodorus Siculus rightly identified the whole fable of the underworld that was dramatized in Greece as having been copied from the ceremonies of the Egyptian funerals and so brought on from Egypt into Greece and Rome. One part of this mystery was the portrayal of the suffering sun god in a feminine phase. When the suffering sun was ailing and ill, he became female, such being a primitive mode of expression. Luke describes the Lord in the Garden of Gethsemane as being in great agony, and this sweat was, as it were, great drops of blood falling to the ground. This experience the Gnostics identified with the suffering of their own hemorrhoidal Sophia, whose passion is the original of that which is celebrated during Passion Week, the week of weeping in Abtu, and which constitutes the fundamental mystery of the rosy cross and the rose of silence. In this agony and bloody sweat, the Christ simply fulfills the character of Osiris. Tesh, Tesh, the red sun, the sun god that suffers his agony and bloody sweat in some men, whence Gesem or Gethsemane. Tesh means the bleeding, red, gory, separate, cut, and wounded. Tesh Tesh is the inert form of the god whose suffering, like that of Adonis, was represented as feminine, which alone reaches a natural origin for the type. He was also called Anz-Ra, or the sun bound up in linen. So natural were the primitive mysteries. My attention has just been called to a passage in Lycophron, who lived under Ptolemy Philadelphus between 310 and 246 BC. In this, Hercules is referred to as that three-knighted lion whom of old Triton's fierce dog with furious jaws devoured, within whose bowels, tearing on his liver, he rolled, burning with heat, though without fire, his head with drops of sweat bedewed all o'er. This describes the god suffering his agony and sweat, which is called the bloody flux of Osiris. Here the nights are 3 in number, so the Son of Man was to be 3 nights as well as 3 days in the heart of the earth. In the Gospels, this prophecy is not fulfilled, but if we include the night of the bloody sweat, we have the necessary 3 nights and the mythos becomes perfect. In this phase, the suffering sun was the red sun, whence the typical red lion. As Atom, the red sun is described as sitting from the land of life in all the colors of crimson, or Pant, the red pool. This clothing of colors is represented as a gorgeous robe by Luke, a purple robe by Mark, and a robe of scarlet by Matthew. As he goes down at the autumn equator, he is crucified. His mother knew, or Mary, the heaven, seeing her son, the Lord of terror, greatest of the terrible, sitting from the land of life with his hands dropping. She becomes obscure, and there is great darkness over all the land, as at the crucifixion described by Matthew, in which the passing of the Lord of terror is rendered by the terrible or loud cry of the synoptic version. The sun god causes the dead, or those in the earth, to live as he passes down into the underworld, because as he entered the earth, the tombs were opened, i.e. figuratively, but it is reproduced literally by Matthew. The death of Osiris in the ritual is followed by the night of the mystery of the great shapes, and it is explained that the night of the mystery of the great shapes is when there has been made the embalming of the body of Osiris, the good being, justified forever in the chapter on the night of the laying out of the dead body of Osiris, it is said that Isis rises on the night on the laying out of the dead body to lament over her brother Osiris, and again, the night of the laying out of the dead body of Osiris is mentioned, and again it is described as that on which Isis has risen to make a wall for her brother. But this is also the night on which he conquers his enemies and receives the birthplace of the gods. He tramples on the bandages as they make for their burial. He rises his soul and conceals his body. So the Christ is found to have unwound the linen bandages of burial, and they saw the linen in one place and the napkin in another. He too conceals his body. This is closely reproduced or paralleled in John's Gospel, where it is Mary Magdalene who rises in the night and comes to the sepulchre while it was yet dark, to find the Christ arisen as the conqueror of death and the grave. In John's version, after the body is embalmed in 100 pounds weight of spice, consisting of myrrh and aloes, we have the night of the mystery of the shapes. For while it was yet dark, Mary Magdalene, coming to the sepulchre and peering in, sees the two angels in white sitting, the one at the head and the other at the feet, where the body had lately lain. And in the chapter of how a living being is not destroyed in hell, or the hour of life ends not in Hades, there are two youthful gods, two youths of light, who prevail as those who see the light, and the vignette shows the deceased walking off. He has risen. Matthew has only one angel or splendid presence, whose appearance was as lightning, which agrees with Shepi, the splendid one, who lights the sarcophagus as a representative of the divinity. Ra, the risen Christ, who is the first seen and recognized by Mary, says to her, "Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father." The same scene is described by the Gnostics when Sophia rushes forward to embrace the Christ, who restrains her by exclaiming that he must not be touched. In the last chapter of the preservation of the body in Hades, there is much mystical matter that looks plainer when written out in John's Gospel. It is said of the regermination or risen God, "May the Osiris speak to thee." The Osiris does not know. He which is Osiris knows him. Let him not grasp him. The Osirified comes out sound. Immortal is his name. He has passed along the upper roads, that is, as a risen spirit. He it is who grasps with his hand and gives the palpable proof of continued personality, as does the Christ who says, "See my hands and my feet, that it is I myself." The sun god re-arises on the horizon, where he issues forth, saying to those who belong to the race, "Give me your arm." Says the Osirified deceased, "I am made as ye are." Let him explain it. At his reappearance, the Christ demonstrates that he is made as they are. "See my hands and feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see." And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and feet. Then he said to Thomas, "Reach hither thy finger, and see my hands, and reach hither thy hand, and put it into my side." These descriptions correspond to that to the cut, wounded, and bleeding sun god, who says to his companions, "Give me your arm, I am made as ye are." In the Gospel of the Hebrews, he is made to exclaim, "For I am not a bodiless ghost." But in the original, when the risen one says to his companions, "Give me your arm, I am made as ye are," he speaks as a spirit to spirits, whereas in the Gospels, the Christ has to demonstrate that he is not a spirit because the scene has been transformed into the earth life. The Gnostics truly declare that all the supernatural transactions asserted in the Christian gospel were counterparts or representations of what took place above. That is, they affirm the history to be mythical, the celestial allegory made mundane, and they were made in the right, as the Egyptian gospel proves. There are healers, and Joshua ben Pandera may have been one. But because that is possible, we must not allow it to vouch for the impossible. Thus, in the Gospels, the mythical is and has to be continually reproduced as miracle. That which naturally pertains to the character of the sun god becomes supernatural in appearance when brought down to earth. The solar god descends into the nether world as the restorer of the bound to liberty, the death to life. In this region, the miracles were wrought and the transformation took place. The evil spirits and destroying powers were exorcised from the mummies. The halt and maimed were enabled to get up and go. The dead were risen, a mouth was given to the dumb, the blind were made to see. The reconstitution of the deceased is transformed to earth life, whereupon the blind receive their sight and the lame walk. The lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up. At the coming of the Christ who performed the miracles, the drama which the idiotic mistook for human history were performed by the sun god in another world. I could keep going on all day and all night, or give a dozen lectures without exalting my evidence that the canonical Gospels are only a later, literalist reshift of the Egyptian writings. The representations in the mysteries and the oral teachings of the Gnostics which passed out of Egypt into Greece and Rome. For there is plenty more proof where this comes from. I can but offer a specimen brick of that which is elsewhere a building sat, foursquare, and sound against every blast that blows. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Rosies. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.